Welcome to the Live Full, Work Fun podcast. This is the show to encourage you to live your life to the fullest and do fun work that fuels your lifestyle. Hi, I'm your host, Gayla Scrivener. Every week, you'll be introduced to amazing guests, useful resources, and inspirational stories. You'll discover opportunities and perspectives to shape your version of living full and working fun. Hi there and welcome. This season, we're exploring the theme, Don't Let the Start Stop You. It's a powerful reminder that while beginnings can be daunting, they're also the gateway to growth, success, and happiness. That's why today I've asked Lora Newman to return to the show for a conversation. As the founder and CEO of 0 to 60 Performance Coaching, Lora combines her expertise as a licensed mental health professional with innovative leadership coaching techniques and equine assisted coaching. What makes Lora's approach unique is her deep connection to both human and animal well-being. She brings together her background in veterinary technology with advanced certifications in equine assisted growth programs to create transformative experiences for her clients. At her 1 paint and 3/4 farm, Lora works with an extraordinary team that includes 9 therapy horses, 3 miniature donkeys, and a therapy dog. Leaders from across the country visit this facility to experience her groundbreaking workshops. Beyond her coaching work, Lora is a licensed professional counselor with degrees in psychology and counseling. She's also an accomplished author of 90 Days to the Path to Success and brings valuable perspective as a U.S. veteran. Let's get right into the conversation, shall we? Welcome, Lora. I am so glad to have you here with me again.
Thank you for having me back, Gayla. It's an honor and a privilege. Always enjoy the conversations with you.
Oh my goodness, the last time that you were on the show was way back around November 2021. So it's high time that we had another conversation.
The world has changed, for sure.
Right? You utilize the wisdom of horses to help with leadership training.
Yes. And there are many reasons for that, because as you just said, horses have a lot of wisdom, and that we actually have science backing up that statement now. Yeah, I think now it's more imperative that we get horses and humans connected.
Since we last spoke, you've changed, not necessarily changed, but you're specializing in a little bit different of leadership training. Can you tell us about that?
I think when we say pre-COVID, post-COVID, not to be hammering on the COVID, I think we have to acknowledge, though, that there was a paradigm shift. There was an absolute mindset shift that happened as we came through COVID. And I don't want to label it good or bad. It was just a shift in how we operate as humans and the things that we felt like would take years to accomplish. For instance, to offer therapy on telehealth predominantly. Before COVID, we were like, and that shifted overnight. We did in days what we thought would take years. So that's just one example. But now we're dealing with a different workforce, a different mindset in that workforce. And there's a wonderful book called Culture Shock. It's written from the gentleman from Gallup. And we all know Clifton Strengths, that's from Gallup. A lot of research goes into their work. And that book, Culture Shock, not only explains that mindset shift, it also gives business leaders a handbook, if you will, a playbook to operate from, to begin shifting their own mindset. And I don't mean that the mental health challenges are what I enjoy. What I enjoy is that people are becoming more aware of the need for good mental health, for mental fitness is what I like to really focus on with leaders. But that mental fitness needs to start with the leader, and that there's a lot of awareness that comes with that.
Well, have you noticed that as the workforce has shifted, that the workforce has gotten more importance elevated for their own mental health, making sure that they have enough family time, for example, to not miss out on opportunities with those family relations, hobbies infused with their work. So their work and family lifestyle or balance seems to be a little different than in the past. So the workforce seems to kind of demand that. But have you seen cultures shift in the workplace or leadership styles change as quickly as the workforce?
I have no research to back up my next statement. I'm going off observation and what I am reading in like McKinsey, Harvard Business Review, things of that nature. I hear a lot of talk from not only the business leaders, but their teams. And I want to say it's about a 50-50. It may, in my point of view, they're not shifting quickly enough. The leaders are not stepping into this shift that's needed. And not to make them wrong, I think this has been difficult because leaders have a lot on their plate to manage. But the old command and control no longer works. For so long, business has separated strategy from culture and really didn't feel like culture mattered. And what is culture? Well, culture is kind of that mindset, that cumulative mindset that develops within an organization that helps it makes or breaks the workflow of the day. Now, the work that my team and I are doing is really focused on partnering with business leaders to help them understand, yes, strategy is important, but in order to drive that strategy, you want to make your culture drive the strategy. And when we show them how simple that can be, it can look simple. Sometimes there are complications, but it really is a simple formula to help them engage their people. And that can help drive the numbers because when people feel heard, when people feel that they're important, they want to be more involved. When they have a sense of ownership in what happens today, they're going to be more engaged. The other thing that I've noticed is in working with some of the companies is the employees have a point of view, as we see on those Facebook reels, the POV that the leader didn't see because he couldn't. He's been here. But the very people engaged or interfacing with your customers or your clients are seeing things from a different point of view. And so the thing that Culture Shock, the book, really drives home is if you want to increase, either your revenue or the number of people engaging your services, you've got to get your employee engagement up. That's reciprocal to, if they feel more engaged, it reciprocates into the customers.
In working with the leaders that you work with, have you come across any common thread of hesitancy of implementing what you might have given as advice?
That's a multifaceted answer. And oftentimes the leaders don't see themselves as part of the problem. And so they'll want us to come in and get their team flying in formation or get the team producing more. And I'm standing there looking at them going, are you part of the team?
Right. We were just talking off microphone. It's like the mindset of true leadership, being a part of the team, and the word boss, bossing people around. I hate it when somebody calls me the boss. I just hate it because it feels like I'm detached from the team.
I was very blessed. I had an opportunity to work with some Native American leaders a couple of years back. And, when you work with any client, you always learn. And that's what I love about my job is I know I'm going to learn something about the world, myself, or something. But one of the big takeaways in doing that work and co-facilitating with horses with them was that they viewed leadership as shoulder to shoulder. There was no one out front. There was no one with more responsibility than another. Those 2 days that we spent working with them was beautiful. And I thought if we could get more of that mindset in the American workforce of leading shoulder to shoulder, not saying that, we do away with titles or do away with how you swim in your lane, but it was just looking down the ranks at, we're in this together. And how can we communicate more effectively to get it done together? And I think so often it's difficult to come out of old paradigms. I just think, when I was in the Army, it was you did what you were told and you didn't question. And then as you moved up in the ranks and became the leaders, you learned to bark orders and they better not question you. Now, in that scenario, in the trenches, that can mean life or death. If they're telling me to move now, I probably need to. But out here, we just don't have that same sort of, somebody could die necessarily. And communication gets off and leaders will show up. We got to remember, and it's hard being a leader because we have our stuff going on at home like everybody else, right? Every human has something going on at home personally. We all come into our adulthood with the things that happened to us in our younger years that may be lingering. I do a lot of trauma work as well as leadership development and team building. And I picked that up coming through the pandemic because many business owners were traumatized because their way of life, how they made a living, gone overnight, very traumatizing. So how we see ourselves, the past, the context of our lives, and if we haven't had a whole lot of leadership training, and if you look at, and I'm not going to get off into politics here, I'm just saying at political leaders, the lack of leadership training is showing up on many fronts. So, I wish they would engage. I feel like there ought to be a requirement to have so much leadership training before you step into being a government leader. Nobody
right?
Right. But being in business, there's the aspect of yourself and then the people you lead and how you show up there. And if you have a lot going on, I've worked with business owners going through divorces. That's tough because you're showing up to work each day after dealing with something very stressful and you're trying to put on your game face and it's tough. And, that's not the case for everybody. Being a leader, I feel like get some support, whether it's from a mentor in your field or a coach or someone at church or just someone that can support you in leading, be a sounding board can be very valuable.
What about, this just popped into my mind about being transparent. What does that mean for a leader? Because it seems like you have to keep a certain amount of distance. I mean, that's the traditional thinking of there's a hierarchy, so there's a distance that we need to have. But if we're creating a culture to be shoulder to shoulder, is there a differentiation there? How transparent should a leader be? Or what is the definition of transparency really in a leadership role?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's a dance. I think a delicate dance. Authenticity is the word that comes to mind. And what is authenticity? It's about being real and congruent. And when we're working with leaders, a lot, we work with them on becoming congruent and coherent and authentic. And what do we mean by that? Well, the horses, they're brilliant at helping these leaders do that. Because now we know horses actually connect with our heart when we get into a certain distance with them. So they're picking up on what's happening in our heart. And I'm going somewhere with this. But if we are incongruent or feeling inauthentic, I do hook some of my clients up to a heart monitor, it looks very jagged. And so horses are naturally in a state of coherence. Now, if you're hooked up to the heart monitor and we teach leaders techniques to become more coherent in their heart rate, and there's a reason for that. The heart monitor looks more like this. And so the horses are naturally in this state. What that does, we work on improving heart rate variability, and that's the space between the beats. But what that does is it helps calm down our nervous systems. So if we've got some stress going on, we teach them to calm, it also gives us access to more of the mental resources that we actually hold as leaders. If we're stressed, we're more closed off from the resources mentally. We're also not as receptive to what's going on in communication with other people, keeping in mind that 95% of our communication is nonverbal and subconscious. I think about that sometimes. I'm thinking, oh my God, we're driving around asleep.
It sounds like it.
Unaware and asleep.
Mm-hmm.
So we work with leaders to become very aware of what am I nonverbally communicating. And so partnering them with horses, there's no riding, it's all on the ground. They don't even have to ever been around a horse before to have this work, because horses respond to congruency. They feed back whatever you're internally feeling. We now know that horses and humans, through heart monitors that we've connected to the horses and the humans, are hooked up, and the horses are reflecting what the humans are experiencing.
That's fascinating.
So that's why I always laugh and say they are lie detectors. So you can't lie. You cannot come into this arena and lie about what you're experiencing. But the point here is that the more congruent you become as a leader, the more authentic you are. And horses respond to that. They typically will come closer and be more compliant with whatever task we're trying to get done. So will people. But the base note to what you're talking about, Gayla, is trust. Now, there's two facets to that. And this is where leaders trip. They focus outwardly trying to get others to trust them, and sometimes overlook, do I trust me? Do I trust me? And if you don't trust you, even on a subconscious level, and sometimes it is subconscious, why would anyone else trust you? And it is so deeply psychological being a leader. So it's about learning to be congruent. And do I share the fight I had with my wife, with my team? Probably not. But if you are coming into that meeting and you haven't slept all night and you know you're off, why not just let them know, look, guys, I've had some sleep disruption and I'm not firing on all 8 cylinders. You don't have to give them all the gory details, but just be authentic in it.
Truly, culture change in an organization, no matter what size the organization or what size the team is, it truly starts with the leader and then radiates out.
It sets the tone. They definitely set the tone. There's an old saying, speed of the leader is the speed of the game. And sometimes leaders can be going too fast. We have to slow them down. And other times it's just an awareness game. How do I show up? Because how we have culturally in the United States set up leadership in the business sector was command and control. I'm out front, I'm on top, and I'm telling all of you what to do. That's imbalanced. It doesn't work, and it continues not to work. And I will hear business leaders say things like, what the hell is culture? And how do I get them? I take them bowling once a quarter. So the other thing is I'll get asked, I don't want to get all up in their feelings. How do I get the culture built without addressing their feelings or getting into their feelings? Like, feelings are a bad thing. We have to remember that people will long remember how you made them feel and rarely what you said.
And training on how to manage that, because there are folks that don't feel like they're touchy-feely people. And then there's others that are really, really empathetic and may have that cloud their decision making. I guess the middle of the road is kind of where you want to be to make good decisions, evaluate both. How would you navigate that?
Yeah, and I realize that feelings can get muddy, and it's really not a focus on feelings. It's about development and cohesion. Trust being the linchpin here. Trust. And we can't really go there without looking at some facts. And the facts are, as you know, I'm a mental health first aid instructor. I teach that certification training to leaders and their teams. But we have to look at, there is a 25% burnout rate. 25% of workers are reporting burnout. Suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. 1 out of every 5 students is reporting feeling bullied at one time or another. We have a compassion fatigue rate of over 50%. And 20%, so 1 in 5 of our population experiences a mental health challenge at some point. So that's quite a bit. Now, what this means to the business leaders, the workplace, is, well, one thing is research is showing us that stressors like long hours, lately we've gone through economic turbulence. There's a lot of economy stressors right now, work, family conflicts, high job demands, coupled with feeling like they don't have a lot of control at work, they're equating in the research that all of that is as harmful as secondhand smoke. United States businesses, approximately 180 billion and 120,000 unnecessary deaths each year. That's a lot. Now, according to WHO, the World Health Organization, depression and anxiety disorders are costing the global economy an estimated $1 trillion per year in lost productivity. That's a lot. Now, I can say that depression and anxiety is rampant out there. There's a lot of it. But I think there is something, though, encouraging here. Harvard Business Review actually put out an article noting that encouraging the business sector with every dollar that you put in toward mental fitness, toward mental health of your workers, there's about a $4 return on that investment. So that's pretty encouraging. We just need to get the business leaders on board. And I think part of that problem, that disconnect, is there's a fear of getting involved in the mental health stuff. Are we liable? How liable are we? And that's unfortunate, because that's what keeps us in a holding pattern. If we're afraid of being punished or punitive repercussions, that keeps us stuck.
Some companies do give mental health benefits, but that's just scratching the surface. That is not to say a bad benefit, but just to have something that's included in your insurance, or that you can have one call to a mental health professional once a month, whatever that is, that you could talk about anything, that's just scratching the surface. I love what you do. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's not just working with the leaders, but it's also working with teams. How does that look for you in working with leaders and teams?
The horses are involved in a lot. As I said earlier, communication, most of it's nonverbal. And it's a lot of fun getting the leaders and the teams in the arena with the horses and setting up things, challenges for them, because the communication dynamics really pop to the surface, because the thing is, how you are in one area is how you are. So that bubbles up to the surface, and we get the opportunity to facilitate that process of the communication gaps and helping them smooth out communication between the teams, help them get that siloed team more involved and more included. Because you always have, in bigger companies, you'll have a team over here feeling very siloed, meaning they feel like they're not a part of the bigger organization and they don't have a voice. That can be toxic or become toxic. The point that you were making earlier, oftentimes we'll come in and we'll start on the bigger project, the bigger picture. And then when I get the opportunity to meet with the individuals, the real problems can begin to surface. And one thing that sticks out at me is, you are right, some companies offer employee assistance programs, EAP. And what that means, if you're not familiar with it, is they get so many, like maybe 8 sessions with a therapist. Although that sounds great, oftentimes I will get into those sessions and maybe they're there because of a conflict at work or a grind with their boss, something, or a marital issue. But when we get to working, come session 4, I start finding sometimes maybe there's some trauma or some outright PTSD going on that you're recognizing immediately that needs to be addressed. But the 8 sessions are over after a period of time. And although you've made some movement forward, they still need more support, and they can't afford, either they don't have health insurance with a low copay to continue on, so they're trying to pay for it out of pocket and they can't, or the health insurance doesn't offer mental health support. So I find that disheartening. And if someone is carrying something, and here's how it might look, Gayla, sometimes they'll say, we've got an employee that has the shortest temper. She just, or he just, snap, 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 always walking around him. What's going on? Is there some anxiety driving that? Maybe, is there a little depression? Has something happened? We don't know. There's a reason. There's always something underneath. And because we're afraid of the feelings, the F word, feelings, things go unaddressed. And so dynamics don't change. Productivity drops. Profitability continues to drop. And leaders are like, man, I don't know what to do with that.
The tie with mental health or team cohesiveness and productivity, there's a big link to that. Are you seeing that it's not about clawing your way up a ladder? It's more about inclusion and personal growth of feeling involved?
There was a huge shift toward that after we all went back out, after we emerged from the dust of the pandemic. There seems to be more of a movement of wanting that authenticity, wanting to feel like you're important, a contributor to the organization. And part of that is feeling heard and understood. Anytime you bring a group of people together, you're bringing the context of their past and their present into that equation. And awareness, a lot of times, if you can give a group of people, you were asking about our work, if you can give them an awareness not only about themselves, but about each other. One thing we do is we bring the Clifton strengths in with the horses and the teams. I collaborate with another coach out of St. Louis on the cultural development, and he has some fun things that he brings in. And it never ceases to amaze myself and the participants on what they learn about themselves. It's fun to see people light up when they go, now I understand why I was always told to sit down and be quiet. And you've got a female there that's strong in leadership. And so, when she understands that, it's kind of like that was running unchecked and she didn't really know what to do with it. And it was coming across sideways sometimes. But when you give people kind of a map of themselves and how to fully lean into those strengths, it's fun to watch them light up and everyone understands. And when your team members turn and say, you have a strength in that area of persuasion, let's let you lead on that project of getting the information and the other teams involved. You see them suddenly leaning on each other and working as a team.
It seems like in the past, it's like team and teamwork might have been just talk. And now the workforce truly wants a culture change and be a connected community. What would happen if leaders are grasping at the old ways? What will they find?
Frustration. Frustration, generally speaking, lackluster results. And, on that note, I remember one company that we engaged, and the thing that the employees came back told us, feedback notes, was we have gone to these workshops, we've had people come in and do these things, and we come up with great ideas, but there's no follow through. It's like, and they were asking, are you all going to work with us? And we're like, well, that's not our decision, although we'll do the best we can. But I think leaders think, oh, we'll just give them a workshop. We'll do a disc workshop, or we'll do a this, that workshop. And no, you have to actually bring that culture in with a strategy and drive it and check in with it and understand how to do that. I say it's a simple layout. But when we're talking about the psychology, bringing psychology and emotion into this, it's a little different ball game. But they were really, if there's any leader listening to this and you keep having these one and done workshops, your people are probably a little frustrated because the wonderful things they're learning are not being fully implemented. So make sure, one thing is to make sure things are fully implemented. If leaders continue down the old command and control avenue, it's frustration. You're going to be driving off of a little fear. I see them doing knee-jerk reactions, sometimes overreacting, decreased productivity, profitability. And the one thing I will say, if a leader is standing there doing this and they're not productive enough, they're not communicating, they are drama-ridden, if you catch yourself doing this, I'm going to invite you to go, hold the mirror up and say, what needs to shift about me? Because I will tell you, your teams are reflecting your inner workings and the paradigms you hold, the fears, the shortcomings, the good things too, but they are reflections. They are mirror images of you.
Very good point. Very insightful. Lora, you touched on something that is truly important. Having the ideas and having the thoughts or a plan, that's an easy part. Going to a one and done workshop. Implementation, on the other hand, is the hard part because that takes work and consistency, and you may not be able to implement all the ideas that come out of a workshop or a test or whatever the professional development may be. What advice would you give someone is letting the start stop them? They're not getting that implementation piece. Maybe a leader or even folks taking a professional development type of coaching such as yours. What's hesitating that first step. And do you have any advice on getting them started?
Yeah, I think a lot of times what happens is they look at a single investment, a weekend or a 2-day workshop or something, just for example. And the ideas sound great. And oh, yes, we're going to, going forward, we're going to do this. But it's so easy to fall back into our old habits because we are creatures of habit. We develop neural pathways of thinking. And so we are going to go into default mode every time. That's what we do. And so you have to look at the ROI, the return on the investment that you are making. And it can look like, well, I made a pretty good investment here. Well, that investment is lost if there's not someone to help you hold it. I always get the picture of, those things, those that you blow up and put in the gutters of a bowling alley so your ball doesn't go in the gutter. I always tell them, get the little blow up things and put them in the gutter. What does that look like? Someone that can hold you all accountable to fully implementing. And the thing is, although you might be a very savvy business person, if you've not been through coach training or leadership training, when you're talking about something like cultural development, there is specific higher level training involved in that. And most business leaders don't have that. I would encourage them to really consider using that as the things that keep you guys out of the gutter and further invest in full implementation. Otherwise, what's the ROI? It was a great day.
Yeah. That look at the investment as a whole for long-term benefit instead of, hey, this is a day workshop and that's how much it is. And it's 8 hours. That's it. That's just the beginning. I love that. To look at the ROI inclusively. Lora, how do folks connect with you?
They could call me for sure. My number is always on the website. The website is 0. And I did it kind of weird. I'm not sure I did myself any favors, but it's 0 and the number 2 and then SIXTY coach.com. So it's 0260coach.com. Anyone could contact me through my website and I'm happy to have a conversation. Just, what's going on, what's needed, because I really have to have a very proper intake with anyone. I offer a free consult just to establish, number 1, what's going on. Number 2, am I the right person that can help you? And if not, I really like to be that toolbox of resources to help people connect with the right people. And I'm not always the right person.
I love that. Well, thank you, Lora, for being with me today. I've got the links to your contact information down in the show notes and any other resources. So thanks so much for being here. I loved our conversation.
Thank you, Gayla.
I'm so grateful for Lora coming back to the show and for sharing her incredible insights on leadership, authenticity, and the powerful lessons we can learn from working with horses. Her unique approach to leadership development through equine-assisted coaching continues to inspire and transform leaders across the country. And I think it's the perfect time to hear her message and lessons. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And remember that every great journey begins with a single step. Whether you're starting a new business venture, stepping into a leadership role, or pursuing personal growth, don't let the start stop you. The path may seem daunting, but as Lora has shown us today, with the right mindset and support, you can overcome any initial hurdles. If you'd like to learn more about Lora's work or connect with her, you can visit her website at 0to60coach.com or on social media. I've included all the links to contact her in the show notes. Well, until next time, keep pushing forward, embrace those new beginnings, and remember to live full, work fun.